World War II was not only the crackling gunfire in foxholes, not only the roar of fighters tearing open the sky, or the red streaks of bombs cutting through the night. Behind those images were places no one paid attention to, hangars reeking of burnt oil, workshops drowned in coal smoke, where people who were never called heroes fought with bare hands and a determination no one ever saw. At an air base in southeastern England, among damp fields and thick morning fog, there was one such technician. He had no high rank, no medals. He appeared in no ceremony of honor. But if you asked the pilots of the British Bomber Command, they would lower their voices, shaking, because the truth was too heavy. He kept us alive, because mechanics didn't just repair airplanes, they repaired hope, and sometimes they repaired life itself for those who would sit in the cockpit the next day. This technician had witnessed hundreds of B-17 flying fortresses return in catastrophic condition, wings torn apart, tails burned away, engines exploding mid-air, shattered glass embedded in the pilot's seat. Once, a Lancaster returned with only half its left wing. Another time, a pilot exploded on landing. But those bodies didn't stop him. They haunted him. He understood something many officers didn't. Saving one airplane meant saving 10 lives. So when people called it exhaustion, he called it a normal day. When people said can't be saved, he said push it into the hangar. And when people said follow procedure, he replied, procedure isn't the one sitting in the cockpit, the pilot is. And that was how he began breaking the rule book, only to become an unnamed legend. Every time the alarm blared from the control tower, the technician knew what was coming. The B-17s returning from bombing missions looked like flying skeletons. Mechanics had a grim name for them, zombies from hell. One B-17 slammed into the runway with a crooked landing gear, scraping a long scar across the concrete like a dying beast. Engine number 3 dangled by a few bolts. Thick smoke covered the airstrip. When the cockpit opened, the pilot slumped out, hands still gripping the charred controls. The technician ran over, pulling a man from the cockpit. The pilot's body was burning hot, but he still whispered 2 words, "Still flying." The technician knew what that meant. The airplane had died in the sky, but forced itself home so someone like him could try to save it. That was absolute trust and an absolute burden. Then came a day in November 1943 when fog blanketed the base in white. A squadron returned in the worst condition he had ever seen. One aircraft had no cockpit canopy. One had a broken left wing spar. One had a bomb bay hit and half charred. One had lost nearly its entire landing gear. Someone muttered, "Death is playing with us." The technician stood among the steel corpses, his chest tightening like an invisible fist. Death wasn't playing with them. Death was waiting for them. And he, with only 2 hands and scraps of metal, had to hold it back. Inside the dim workshop, metal clanged like funeral bells. But he bent down, picking up braces, bent pipes, broken frames. Because he knew if he gave up, who would fight for them. Then came the aircraft that changed everything. A B-17 tail number DF-237 limped back from deep inside German territory. From a distance, the technician felt his chest sink. The plane shook violently, trailing a long diagonal plume of smoke. When it touched down, his heart fell straight into darkness. It was barely an airplane anymore. Half its left wing ripped like claw marks from a demon. The right frame caved in from anti-aircraft fire. A hole the size of a doorway torn through its belly. Bomb bay jammed and smeared with dried blood. Tail bent down, almost severed. Engine number 2 coughing black smoke. The technician touched its skin. Cold, dented, filled with shrapnel. Then he saw something that forced him to look away. Dried blood dripping from the bomb bay onto the ground. A crewman had died inside. A mechanic muttered, "Retire it. It'll never fly again." But the technician didn't believe that. He never believed that. He opened the engine bay, burnt wires, broken oil lines, shattered supports, warped key structures. By military procedure, the aircraft was beyond saving. It had to be scrapped. He knew that, but he also knew this. The base was critically short on aircraft. If this one was scrapped, 10 men would have no plane for the next mission. Without that plane, the squadron would lose firepower. The mission would fail. And more people, far more than 10, would die. He stood before the charred bomb bay for a long time. Then he said something that terrified everyone. "Bring it inside, I'll fix it." "You're insane. It's a corpse." He looked the man straight in the eye. "Then I'll bring it back to life." The base commander arrived moments later, furious. "Who ordered that wreck into my hangar?" The technician wiped his hands and said, "I did. That plane is beyond repair. Didn't you read the report?" "I did." "Then why?" The technician interrupted a rare act of defiance. "Because if we lose that plane, we lose people." The air froze. Procedures exist for a reason, and human lives exist for a bigger one. The talk ended with a cold sentence: "Fix it if you want. But if it explodes in the air, the deaths are on you." The technician nodded. He knew what that meant. If he continued this repair, he would be breaking orders, breaking military rules, breaking his career. But he couldn't back out. He turned toward the wounded B-17. Under the dim light, it looked like a dying warrior asking for one last chance. "All right," he whispered. "One more fight." That night, when the hangar lights went out and the base fell silent, only one figure remained, working like a ghost, trapped among machines. He tore out burnt wiring, removed shattered beams, cut away twisted metal. His hands bled as sharp metal sliced him, but he didn't stop. He patched the massive hull breach with steel salvaged from a dead aircraft. Not regulation, not approved, but it was all he had. Sparks flew like falling stars as he welded. The glow danced in his tired eyes, eyes of a man fighting death itself. By 3 a.m., the framework was reinforced, the hull patched, wires reconnected and sealed with improvised insulation. No one else on the base would have dared. No one else would take that responsibility. But in war, sometimes only the madmen could save lives. He stepped back and touched the patched fuselage. "Tomorrow, please fly."